Greetings and salutations, travelers of the internet, and welcome to the Lit Round Table. I'm Joseph.
And I'm Anna. We'll be your wise or not so wise mentor for today's audio adventure into all things storytelling.
Woohoo!
Welcome.
Here we are.
Yeah, not chapter.
Wow.
Goodness. Thinking about books. Episode 15.
15.
That's a nice number.
It is. It's a good number.
Yeah. So, a couple of housekeeping items.
Oh.
We're recording this episode just before Josef and his lovely wife moved to Texas.
Yeah.
So, it's very exciting.
It is exciting and scary.
Yeah. So this will be the last episode of like the regular pod that we've recorded together.
For now. So going forward, we'll be recording in separate locations. So I don't think it'll super impact like the nature of the podcast. Fine. It'll be okay. But yeah, it'll just be interesting. And I know for the last one, for the Shakespeare one, we were like, oh, the next one's going to be the conspiracy theory about how Shakespeare didn't actually write any of the plays, and he's plagiarizing, and like...
And I gave Joseph homework to do some research on it.
I'm still so excited about putting on my tinfoil hat and diving down that rabbit hole, but moving requires a lot of time.
And brain power.
To like pack and figure out the logistics of like moving your insurance, getting your internet set up in your new place, ending all your services where you're at,
and like
finding an
packing.
apartment. And that's just not even the packing. That's just the paperwork.
Right.
So I was lucky that I got all of the Dragonlance reading done that I needed to do.
Yeah.
And we're lucky that we're even here recording right now.
Yes. So, and I was like, you know what? Let's get a couple more episodes. So we have this episode right now, and then the next Dragonlance episode that will air the week after this one, already recorded. So, I was like, you know what? I'll take the like heavy lifting on these two.
Yeah.
So you can focus on the moving thing.
Yeah.
And that way, you listeners don't have a gap in content either. So, fingers crossed. Theoretically, you will not have noticed any gap.
And if there was a gap...
Sorry.
My bad.
Life. Sorry, but not that sorry. Yeah. So, we're putting maybe the next one will be the Shakespeare one after you've had a chance to settle and do some research. Because
I am really excited to research that.
Yes. But this week we're going to talk about morally gray characters, which I think will be very fun.
That will be very interesting.
Yeah.
They're typically fan favorites, so...
Yes. Yeah.
Ready to dive down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. But before we get into that, let's talk about what we're reading, watching, enjoying right now.
I suppose. That's a good idea.
Do you want to go first, or would you like me to go first?
I can go first.
Okay.
Again, packing. But I am still, well, of course, reading Dragonlance. Mm-hmm. And let me see. I can pull up really fast. I am on episode, for Critical Role, 124.
Nice. Very good.
I'm like halfway through that episode. That is a good background show for like packing and stuff.
Oh, for sure.
So
yeah, because you don't have to like. I mean, they're on screen, but you don't have to be watching them.
Yeah, you don't have to, because they also have podcast format on Spotify and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And they're all very skilled voice actors. So
yeah, you never are confused about who's talking for their character anyway. So that's been good. Still playing the One Ring RPG, which is going to take a little bit of a hiatus because, again, moving, and also one of the players is getting married and also moving like right when we're supposed to play next time. So it's going to be a little bit before we get to play again.
It's fine.
It's okay. It'll give me more time to prepare.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. And reading, it's pretty much just been the Dragonlance thing because I have been stalled for time.
The title of that book is actually Dragons of Autumn Twilight.
It is Dragons of Autumn Twilight, but Dragonlance is shorter and rolls off the tongue easier.
Yes.
Yes. But then, what else am I watching? Well, Hope and I are still watching Jujutsu Kaisen. And we are still watching... Now, since we're up to date with My Hero Academia.
Right.
We have been watching that when they come out on the weekend. Yeah. But also, we have been watching Attack on Titan because
Yes.
you have only seen the first season.
Yes.
We're still in the first season, but
can I tell you a secret?
Huh?
I watched ahead a little bit on Attack.
Oh, you did?
Titan
That's
after you
fine.
guys left on Friday last week because I was like, I really want to keep watching.
That's fair.
We can go back and watch the same episodes again because
Okay.
they were intense. But I was like, I just want to watch a little more.
Mm-hmm.
And Hope technically said that I could. I don't know that she was serious.
We'll probably
but I
just skip
did it.
ahead because there's a specific episode in season 2 that I really want to get to.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So that's been really fun watching. I even went back on Crunchyroll and like went back to the last episode we were on and like clicked play on it again so that it would be like the next one in the queue instead of like the one that I got to.
After we're done recording, you'll have to tell me how far you got so that we can strategize.
Yeah.
But anyway. So we've been watching Attack on Titan. And
it's getting really good.
Yes.
Which it's a good show. I mean,
it's a very good show. I love the music.
Also,
for the show.
not a kid show. So if you have kids and you're like, we should watch some anime, don't pick Attack on Titan.
No.
There are lots of other options.
It's very mature.
Yes.
Lots of blood, gore.
Yeah. Mostly just gory. It's not like
and disturbing. Like
sexually inappropriate in any way. It's just like
no, it's actually really good about not sexualizing its characters, but the amount of
it's very violent.
Yeah, it's very violent.
And some of the like because I don't know if we've ever talked about what Attack on Titan is even about as far as like structure of the story goes.
Yeah, it's just these giant. Basically, the plot is humanity is down to one last little chunk, and there's Titans, which are these giant humanoid, like size varies, but anywhere from like
the size of a house,
anywhere from like 4 to 15 meters high.
Yeah,
and they eat people, but they kind of look like people. It's this weird Uncanny Valley thing where they're just like these giant, lumbering, human-looking monsters with too many teeth.
Oh my gosh.
That waddle around and try to chomp you.
Sometimes like they have like really erratic behavior and like movement, which makes them super disturbing sometimes.
And since they look human, watching them move in weird ways is really gross and creepy.
Sometimes it's funny.
It's sometimes very funny.
But mostly creepy.
But they're also trying to eat you. So
yes. Yeah.
And they don't eat you for like food. That's just they just like killing people. They just like killing humans because they don't need sustenance.
Yeah.
They're like sun powered.
Right. It's very weird. But if you're an adult that's like thinking you might want to get into some anime, Attack on Titan's a good one.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that's just going to wrap it up for what I'm watching because I can't think of anything.
Okay.
So, yep, your turn.
All right. Well, first, I want to say that I have stopped watching The Seven Deadly Sins.
Oh, okay.
I only watched 3 episodes.
Is there a specific reason?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a fair amount of fan service that happens, which is fairly common in anime.
Yeah.
Of this particular genre of anime. And that is that the Japanese animators assume that a big part of their population or demographic is going to be young boys.
Yeah.
And they like cater very heavily to the male gaze, which means lots of boob, lots of butt, just a lot of like cleavage and unnecessary costume designs.
Yeah.
Which, if you know that that's part of the genre, typically you can get past, because even that happens in My Hero Academia a little bit occasionally with certain characters. But this is like so in your face. And I was like, does this get better? And the 3rd episode, there's some like, all of the episodes that I watched, but especially in the 3rd one, there was some like non-consensual groping.
Ew.
From like the main character.
Ew.
The hero.
That's
and
not cool.
I was like, no, not cool at all. And I was like, this is weird. So then I looked it up. So I was like, is it like Game of Thrones where like the first season has like a gratuitous amount of sex and then it gets better?
Yeah.
as actors negotiate better contracts for themselves.
Yeah.
And the only thing I could find was a resounding no, that it does not, in fact, get better. So I was like, okay, I don't need to keep watching this. There's lots of other animes that I can watch, not this one. So, hopefully between the last episode and this episode, you haven't, like, gone and, like, watched a bunch of The 7 Deadly Sins, dear listener.
But you know, if you have and you're into it and you're able to look past that stuff, it's good for you. But it was, I guess, too distracting.
Yeah. And like the main girl character is like super naive and like I don't know. It was kind of
like she's the dumb blonde, like bimbo.
Yeah. And they were like, she's the dumb blonde bimbo character who's being non-consensually
sexualized.
Yes, and touched.
Yeah.
It's just weird.
Yeah, it's not cool.
Yeah. So, but I did start watching and finished watching Yona of the Dawn, which is an anime on Crunchyroll.
I've not seen that one.
It's I think it's classified as a romance, but it's not like, it just falls in that genre of anime. It wasn't like, it's also a fantasy. Mm-hmm. So, it's the story of Yona, who is the king's only child, his daughter, and he has no sons, and she is like supposed to be finding a suitor or whatever, and she has these two childhood friends, and her, I don't want to spoil anything, but her father ends up dying untimely.
Okay.
And by nefarious means.
Oh.
There's a big
plot
point around that. And she ends up having to go into hiding with one of her childhood friends, who's like her bodyguard. And so then she, throughout the course of the story, has to find the 4 dragons, who are like human representation of dragons. It's very pretty. Yeah. Like the animation style is very pretty. The characters are very endearing and very sweet.
Yeah.
It was very good. It only has 1 season. It came out in 2014. It's probably not going to get a second season.
Yeah.
And it ends with a major cliffhanger. So that was a real bummer.
Typical anime move.
Yes. So I was like, okay, it has a manga. So I was like, I'll find the manga. But the first, like, it's still coming out. Like, I think book 30 is supposed to come out this year.
Oh.
But the first, like, 15 are impossible to find.
Oh.
But you can get them digitally. So I'm like, I don't want to own them digitally.
Yeah.
And I can't, like, they're not, the library doesn't have them, Overdrive doesn't have them.
eBay?
They're expensive on eBay because they're hard to find.
They must be out of print.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to go digital.
Sucks. That's like trying to find the first couple Hunter x Hunter mangas.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to go digital, which I'm, like, real annoyed about. Because they're so pretty.
Yeah.
And I have to know what's going to happen in the story. Because it was so compelling. And then it just ended. I was like, dang. But you should still watch it. It was really good. Okay. Like, oh my gosh. And I watched it very quickly because it was so good.
That reminds me of another one that I've seen that I don't remember the title of, but you would also be really into it. It's about this female warrior who uses a spear, who like gets charged with protecting this kid.
Ooh.
And she's like running around trying to protect him from these forces that are going against them.
Yeah.
There's like really cool fight scenes. There's like a really strong female lead.
Interesting.
Yeah, if I hunt that down again, I'll have
Wasn't
to tell
the Dragon Prince, was it? On Netflix?
No.
Okay.
Dragon Prince.
That was also good.
This was like a Japanese anime.
Okay.
Not an American animation studio. Yeah, if I find the name of that, I'll have to let you know.
Yes.
Because you'd probably like that one a lot.
Please do.
And it was pretty short.
Yeah.
And it actually resolved itself.
Oh. It was so annoying. Yeah. Because it was so good.
Yeah.
And it was so well done. It's like, oh. It does have, like, Yona of the Dawn has, like, the longest intro sequence.
Really?
Oh my gosh. It's, like, minutes long.
Wow.
The whole way through. It never shortens. It might get longer for the second half of the first season. But...
Interesting.
I mean, well done. But...
Yeah.
And then I also watched A Whisker Away, which is an anime movie.
Is that about cats?
It is about... yes. I mean, it's about humans, but they can turn into cats. Oh. One of them...
Interesting.
How did that happen? I watched it, like, last week.
Is it like Japanese cats?
No.
Memory.
I don't think that's the intention.
Okay.
But they're like school-age kids, and the girl's parents like went through a divorce, and she has a lot of like pent-up emotions, and like it's like there's so much like coming of ageness wrapped up in it.
Uh-huh.
And she ends up meeting this cat who sells her a mask, and when she puts this mask on, she becomes a cat.
Is this fairly new?
I think so.
I feel like I've seen trailers for this.
I think they've been pushing it on Netflix. But it's quite good. So she puts on a mask and she becomes a cat, and then she like becomes friends with her crush as a cat. Like her crush like
okay,
loves
I've
the
definitely
cat
seen trailers for this.
version of herself.
So it's actually good. Do you like it?
Yes.
Okay.
It was very good.
Okay. Maybe I'll try it.
It's not Studio Ghibli, but it is like in that vein of story.
That's the vibes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
No, it was very good. Yeah. So that's what I've been watching.
Mm-hmm.
What I've been reading is I just finished volume 22 of My Hero Academia.
Mm-hmm.
Super good.
So where does that put you in the story?
You know when 1A and 1B are
they're fighting
against each other? Yeah.
You're all the way to there?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're
I'm like almost caught
up to the show.
Yeah.
Oh man, I've been seeing a lot of spoilers about like the most recent chapters.
I know. I'm like, I just gotta get there. I gotta catch up.
Yeah.
I also read the first volume of the My Hero Academia Vigilantes spin-off series. Has a different author, but works like closely with Horikoshi.
Are they canon?
I think so. They're
Okay.
they're published by the same. They show up in Shonen Jump. They show a lot of like.
I'm sure they're canon.
They like Horikoshi features art from the Vigilantes in his, and he like plugs.
Oh, cool.
The Vigilantes ones in his main series. The first volume is okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as good as the main story.
Yeah.
But Aizawa makes a like guest appearance in the first one, which I loved.
Nice.
It's great. He's off duty and he like comes across the Vigilantes trying to solve some problem, and he's like, "What are you doing?" It's very funny.
Yeah.
I also finished Shadow and Bone finally.
You did it.
I did it. I listened to it.
Good job.
Yeah, so now I'm on Siege and Storm, which I haven't started yet, but that's the next book in the series.
Did you watch the Netflix show for it?
No, because I want to read all of them first.
Okay.
So no, I have not done that yet. Did you watch it?
No.
Okay, I think your dad did.
Did you like it?
I think so. He just mentioned that he was watching it.
Yeah, I don't know you're listening. Let us know if you liked it.
Yeah. Well, I expected text.
Yeah.
And so now I'm listening to The Princess Will Save You by Sarah Henning, which is a fantasy where the another king is killed and the princess has to figure out what to do.
Wow, it's almost like that's a trope.
Yeah, which I didn't really realize it was a trope until like
the king gets killed and the king has to figure out what to do. Who will take his place?
Yeah, and the princess, her best friend, has been kidnapped. So the princess will save you. She's going to save the friend.
So kind of damsel in distress, but
reversed
with a princess in shining armor.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's good so far. I'm not very far into it yet, but so far so good. So yeah.
Awesome. Anything else?
No.
Okay.
Ooh, I have something that I want to see.
Oh yeah? What's that?
The Green Knight.
Oh yeah.
Starring Dev.
I haven't seen the trailer for that. I've only seen like thumbnails for it.
Yeah.
Have you seen the trailer?
Mm-mm. I've just seen like stills.
Is that like actually a Tolkien thing, or did he?
It's part of the King Arthur legend, which Tolkien did a translation of.
Okay.
Sir Gawain and the Green Knight.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I do want to see that too. Mm-hmm. Arthurian legend is very interesting.
Mm-hmm. And
pretty
the cast is like real cool.
Yeah. And definitely like formative of modern fantasy.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. It's in theaters now.
Very cool.
So maybe after I help you guys move, I'll come back and see a movie.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Cool.
So, okay, morally gray characters.
Yay, here we go.
So I got this idea off of our running note list app.
Cool.
Thing. Words.
We do have a list of potential podcast topics.
Yes.
In a note on our iPhones that's shared.
Yes. Thank you for putting the garble of words that I said into a cohesive thought.
So welcome.
Okay, so you already mentioned that morally gray characters are usually like fan favorites.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Because they are. Why are you making me think right off the bat? No, I think
I'm in book club mode.
I think it's because that's awesome. That just means we'll have better conversation. I think they are more just likable because they're more relatable. Because I think everyone operates on a spectrum of, it's not all cut and dry, black and white. People are nuanced.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone is 100% good or 100% bad.
Right.
So I think seeing characters that actually struggle with their decisions and sometimes mess up and do the wrong thing are more compelling. That's what I would say.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that, I think when we're watching or reading a story and there's a character that's like making the human choice instead of like the hero choice all the time, that makes them appealing because we can see ourselves in them. More readily. And they're interesting. They break up the group dynamic. So like Racelyn, which if you're not listening to our read along of Dragons of Autumn Twilight, you should. But there's a character named Racelyn in that story that is very morally gray.
Yeah, he's like a mage that sacrificed
like dark gray.
his bodily like well-being for his magical powers, and he's like super messed up, and he's definitely power hungry.
But he's hanging out with the good guys.
But he also wants to control the good guys and like.
But he loves his brother.
Yeah.
He's a very conflicted character.
Yeah, so he's very morally gray.
Yes, and even Tass, who's like the Hobbit-like Kender character in that book, he's a pickpocket.
Oh yeah.
He's a little thief, but he's super entertaining, and very loyal to his friends.
Yeah.
But he will steal from them.
All the time.
All the time.
At every opportunity.
And then he'll dump out his little pockets and go through all the things, and he's very funny.
He's very funny.
But yeah, so like they're characters that are like not wholly good or wholly bad, and they're unpredictable.
Yeah.
So like it keeps the audience like wondering like, oh, well, how are they going to react to that situation? Whereas like with the heroes, you can guess like what the good guy is going to do.
Yeah, the morally gray ones are more unpredictable, which I think a lot of stories are going towards that, where the main character is a morally gray character.
Yeah.
I think the days of like having like the super paragon, good
Ned
guy
Stark.
who will always do the right thing no matter what, to a fault.
Mm-hmm. The Ned Starks have all been beheaded.
Yeah.
And we're left with
your Aragorns, I think
I love a good Aragorn. I will say Aragorn is still conflicted. Like he's a hero, but he still like wrestles with not wanting to take up the mantle of being like king and
he's
things.
kind of a reluctant hero.
Yeah, he totally is. He does not want to be king.
Yeah.
Through the whole book.
Until Elrond said, "You can't marry my kid until you."
But even then, he was like, "I don't really know if I want to do this."
But even then, he struggles with that one decision. But he's still, even if he had chosen to be a ranger, he would have been the best ranger there ever was.
That's true, and he was.
And he always makes the decision that will be the best for everyone. And
right, he's not really tempted by the ring.
Yeah, no.
In the same way that Boromir is, who is a morally gray character.
Yeah. So, I think that people are starting to appreciate those characters more.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
because some of the things that I thought of for morally gray characters, because when you told me that we were going to be talking about this tonight, and I just started thinking about which morally gray characters I enjoy.
Yeah.
One that I thought of right away was Mal from Firefly.
Ooh. That's a great example.
Because in the movie Serenity, where it's like his thing where he's like, I'm not a good guy, but
I aim to misbehave.
Yeah, I aim to misbehave. Oh, I love that show so much. Now I have to rewatch that show. Oh, it's so good.
It is really good.
Because there's that part where he's fighting. It's kind of a mild spoiler for Serenity, but kind of not. He's fighting the big bad guy.
It's been out for a long time.
He's fighting the big bad guy of the movie, and the guy, he has this weird theme where he's talking about, or he asks what his sin is, and Mal's like, I'm a fan of all seven, but right now I'm going to have to go with Wrath, as he proceeds to beat the ever-living daylights out of this guy. And it's just one of those really cool moments where it's like you see the character like, yeah, I know this isn't the right thing to do, but I'm going to be selfish and do it anyway. And it's just, because we all have those moments,
He is a space pirate.
He's a space pirate. Which pirates? Jack Sparrow.
Yes.
Very
morally gray.
Pirates are heavily romanticized, and they were not good people.
True story.
The Jack Sparrows, there were more that I thought of. Loki, we just coming off the heels of the Loki show airing. He's definitely morally gray.
So, okay. Let's pause on Loki for a second.
Yeah.
Because one of my questions is there such thing as too many morally gray characters in one story? And I think you could argue that Loki is pretty much all of them.
Yeah, I think, well, a lot of them...
Well, mostly they're just Loki over and over again.
Yeah, everyone's
if
a Loki.
If you watch the show, there's just a lot of Lokis. But do you think that there's...
Alligator Loki is the best Loki.
Yes. Do you think that there's such thing as having too many? Does it become too chaotic if you have too many morally gray characters, or do you need a balance?
I think you can still pull it off. Because think about all these like old like noir, like crime, like detective novels.
Okay, but that's anti-hero.
Well, in those stories, I'm just saying pretty much everyone is morally gray.
How many of those stories have you read?
I don't know.
I'm only asking because I have not read very many, so I do not feel like an authority.
Like, look at Casablanca.
Okay.
Everyone is morally gray.
Sorry, that came out as like a very like
accusatory. What do you know about? You asked me. I don't know.
Sorry.
I'm just pointing off a genre.
I was just like, I am not familiar with this genre. I've read like a handful of these books, and it's not my favorite. But I do have friends that like this is their bread and butter from grad school.
I'm saying like, in every instance I've encountered the genre, pretty much every character is morally gray. Like go watch Knives Out.
Okay.
Almost everyone in that movie, like maybe the main character, female character, maybe she's not super morally gray. Mm-hmm. But that whole family is morally gray.
Okay. I haven't seen Knives Out.
It's a really good movie. You should see it.
Okay.
Ryan Johnson. And Chris Evans in it. Chris Evans is in it. I know
Isn't
English.
Adam Driver in it too?
No.
Oh.
But Daniel Craig is in it.
Why did I think Adam Driver was in it?
Are you thinking of...
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, Marriage Story?
No. I've seen that.
Yeah. Anyway.
If you want to be depressed.
Yeah.
Talking about morally gray characters.
Everyone's morally gray in A Marriage Story, too.
It's true. It's true, except the kid. The poor kid.
But he'll grow up to be morally gray
yes, he will.
because of his parents.
100%. Oh, gosh.
No, I think there are stories where you can pull off having almost an entirely morally gray cast. Okay. Well, because I think, again, it's just a spectrum of where you fall on the good and bad scale,
Yeah. I guess so, like, I think you're right. But there's, like, a couple exceptions where I'm like, maybe it was too much.
Okay.
And I'm thinking specifically of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Where Ned Stark was the only straight character. Not...
straight shooting.
Yeah, straight shooting character. Like, morally good with, like, the only like blemish on his name was this illegitimate child, but wasn't even his.
Yeah.
He was just taking the blame for that.
Because
to protect people he loved.
Yeah, to protect the reputation of his sister.
Yes.
So like even
and to protect the kid.
Even that blemish that was on his honor wasn't actually there. It was him doing the super honorable thing.
To protect someone that he loved.
Yeah, so he was through and through.
Yeah. But like after he's gone, there are no like
Jon Snow, kind of, but even
he's still
like
still morally gray because when he's part of the Night's Watch, he does like fall in love with and break the code of like celibacy.
Yeah.
And he does like I don't know. He bucks the system a lot when he's part of the
rocks the boat
Watch.
For sure.
And then like Arya is super gray, becomes like a little murder child.
Sansa's pretty gray.
Yes, which like out of necessity
to survive
I don't think she would have been. Like I think if Ned had survived, I think those kids would have had very different outcomes, but once Ned died, it like set them all.
Even Catelyn Stark.
Yeah, because she became a little rage mom.
And, well, she was willing to sacrifice anything for her family.
Yeah. Just, like, super bereft widow that was just like, I can't lose any more of them. And then she
ends up losing 99% of them. But anyway,
maybe,
I see what you mean.
And I think, like, even Bran, you could make the argument that he's also gray.
Yeah.
Because he becomes the three-eyed raven.
Yeah. And he has to make himself morally gray because he's like a non biased, he's just like an observer.
Which by not taking a stance on certain things makes him morally ambiguous. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Ambiguity is what I was trying to say, which was not the right word.
Ambiguous.
So my brain was like stopping me halfway through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think but people loved Game of Thrones till the last season.
Right.
But I think that people like that.
I think it creates a certain amount of tension though that some people
it's not for everyone.
Have a hard time with.
Some people appreciate having the black and white characters. I think that kids books into like YA and young adult stuff it has more of a proclivity towards black and white. This guy's good, this guy's bad. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I would say especially for like middle grade.
Middle grade especially.
I would say like Chronicles of Narnia is pretty straightforward, like good and bad.
Yeah. I think YA like teen, like high school level, I think you can start to get a little more gray with some of the characters because your audience is mature enough to be able to understand that there's nuance, to people.
And the concept of like an unreliable narrator. Yeah. You can start to like get a better grasp on that.
But I think when these young minds are still developing, I think that just having clear cut, I think that's probably good and why they probably stay away from that kind of thing, which is why you had such a problem with Frozen with Hans.
It is. It is, totally.
But yeah, I think that as the audience matures, I think then the authors start to introduce the readers to the idea that there are people in this world that there's a lot of just nuance to people and everyone's not black and white and
we make selfish choices for whether it's like selfish can mean like not just for yourself, right? Like you can make a choice that's going to protect someone you care about. Ultimately that decision was selfish on your part because you wanted something from that other person, but was perceived as good because as a whole it was a good decision, but you were making it for a selfish reason.
So looking at like Game of Thrones, that show is definitely for mature audiences.
Oh yes.
Because of the violence and sexual content and but then also if you look at it from just the characters, there's so much backstabbing and lying and deception and which some people eat that stuff up, like the political intrigue,
Yeah, that's true. I want to go back to what you were saying about Kidlit, because I'm reading The Silver Chair right now with book club kiddos, and we just had the chapter where our Eustace and Jill and not Rumpelstiltskin, Puddleglum.
Puddleglum. It's a great name.
It's a great name. Are with the knight in the Underland, and he is telling them his story, and he's talking about how the queen saved him from this enchantment that turns him into a raving lunatic, like 1 hour of the night, and he has to be bound to this chair every night or else he goes crazy. And he's telling them the story. He believes, as he's telling them his story, that what he's saying is true, but it becomes very clear once he's tied to the chair and he's in his like bewitched hour that actually the 1 hour of the night is when he's sane and actually knows what's going on and knows who he is. So we had the conversation this week about like what reliable narrator, or like what it means to be a reliable or unreliable narrator, and that was challenging. I don't know that they
didn't quite grasp it.
I'm not sure if they did, so I was like, well, just as you read older books, just keep that in mind. That not every person who tells a story in a story is going to be telling the truth, whether they mean to be or not. They may not know that they're not telling the truth.
Yeah,
but
that's really interesting.
That feeds into the morally gray characters. Because in the Narnia books, there isn't a lot of like I'm thinking the most. Edmund in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is morally gray, but he's redeemed in the end.
Yeah.
And then in every other book, he's pretty, like, staunchly good guy.
Yeah.
Because he's gone through that. And in The Horse and His Boy, you could argue that all of those characters are morally gray until the end, when they've been redeemed. But then, again, they're redeemed in less ambiguous...
Ambiguous.
Wow. That is a hard word for me today. I should stop trying to say it. They're less ambiguous by the end of the story.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I read those. Yeah. Or listened to those.
Mm-hmm. The Horse and His Boy is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting about, morally gray characters in kid books.
Mm-hmm.
There's less of them for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think that's because the more mature your audience, the better they're able to handle that kind of thing.
In the Inkheart series, Dustfinger, Gold Dust, what's his name? The one who I named incorrectly.
Oh no.
It's not Goldfinger. It's Dustfinger, I think. Because I thought it was Goldfinger, and then you were like, that's the James Bond villain, right?
Yeah, it is.
I think it's actually Dustfinger.
You might be right. I don't know. It's been a while. I just know that's the
dear
same
listener,
actor.
You know who I'm talking about.
That's the same actor as Vision from...
It's Paul Bettany.
Yeah.
But he's kind of a morally gray character in a children's book.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Tormented by his past.
Yes.
They
do come up.
Do you have a favorite morally gray character?
A
rogue?
Probably Han Solo. He ends up not being morally gray, but he starts kind of morally gray.
Yeah, he does start that way, I suppose.
And even, like, in the newest ones, he's not out leading the rebellion. He's chilling with Chewie.
Yeah.
Trying to stay out of the way. So,
fair.
I think Han Solo is probably my favorite morally gray character.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if I have a specific favorite. I'd have to think about it a lot. Well, because, like, the first person that popped into my head is not my favorite. But I think it was, like, the first... I don't know if you'd even classify them as morally gray. What do you think about Captain Blood?
Oh.
Because this is a character who, if you're unfamiliar, it's like a really old pirate movie with Errol Flynn. It was also a book before it was a movie, which I've read. But
it's a great movie.
Yeah, it's really good.
If you want like an old Hollywood movie.
Yeah, like Golden Age Hollywood.
So good.
It's
probably problematic.
A great swashbuckling film. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I know. Well, the main person, Captain Blood, was
a doctor.
Not always Captain Blood.
Right.
That was just his last name was Peter Blood, and which is kind of an ironic name for a doctor.
Yeah.
But he got sent away to a slave plantation in the Caribbean because he was treating the wounds of a person who was fighting in a rebellion against the king.
A known traitor.
Trying to heal them. And so he got sent away to a slave. And it was like a sugar plantation place. So, and then he has to figure out how to escape with all of his slave friends, and they steal a ship. They become pirates.
Yeah.
But they have like a code that they adhere to, but they're still pirates. So they're still like...
But they're mostly pirates against the King of England, who enslaved them.
Right.
Unjustly.
They're still stealing all the time.
It's kind of a Robin Hood type situation.
Yeah, which is funny because Errol Flynn also plays a good Robin Hood.
He does.
I don't know if Robin Hood wouldn't be necessarily morally gray. He's more like... I don't know. He's trickier to pin down because I feel like he always would choose good because he's stealing from the rich to give to the poor because the rich won't do it. Mm-hmm. And they're like living these lavish lifestyles and like oppressing the poor. So like he's like, it's like this crazy, like, is he stealing? Yes. But does everybody overlook it and everyone's just kind of cool with it because they deserve it? Yes. Like every Robin Hood story. It's like, he's breaking the law, but we're cool with it because it's Robin Hood, you know? So is he morally gray or is he actually a hero?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that you could write a paper on it.
Yeah. Probably.
There probably have been papers written about it. Are you asking my opinion?
Yes. Tell me. What do you think? Give me an answer right now. Is Robin Hood morally gray?
I think that from a modern perspective, yes. But I think if you asked his contemporaries, like in the world, if they thought he was a morally gray character, the poor would say he was a hero and the rich would say he was a villain.
Yeah. Because he's a vigilante.
Yeah. So I suppose that does, by definition, make him...
Which I think most vigilantes are kind of morally gray by definition. Like Zorro, yes. He's probably...
Yes.
Isn't he morally gray? Mm-hmm. When he carves Z's into people's chest. That seems pretty morally gray to me.
It does. I agree. Totally agree. And then as far as Captain Blood goes, I mean, he's kind of the same vein of character, right?
Yeah. Like they steal, they break the law, but it's from people who deserve it. Because they...
But they also expect other pirates that they work with to be more honorable than they're maybe inclined to be.
Yeah, because he clashes hardcore with one of the pirates, one of the big pirates at Tortuga that he does not vibe with because they don't have a code really, and they have like a whole code of like, you know, you get your fair share. We're gonna plunder, like we're gonna do a lot of damage against England, but also. Don't rape people.
Seems like a really easy thing to follow, but apparently not.
For pirates, probably pretty difficult to follow, judging from history. Again, pirates are heavily romanticized, and we're not good people in real life.
Right.
Generally. I mean...
Yeah, Jack Sparrow wasn't real.
I've never met one.
If I ever met one, I would be dead.
Yeah. Same, probably.
Yeah.
But anyway... yeah, just interesting question on, like, is it, like, what makes a character morally gray? Is it, because if you look at it as just, like, the decisions they make, like, what's the driving factor? I think it's more like, are they driven, do they occasionally cave into selfish desire, or are their actions selfless and looking out for other people? Because Robin Hood, then, is selfless, because he gave up his land and his title and everything to help the poor, needy people. He just so happens to break the law while he does it. But those laws that exist are unjust to him.
And most people.
Yeah. So I think, personally, I would argue that he is not morally gray.
Interesting.
And that he is one of the goodies.
But he is breaking the law.
Right, but the laws themselves, I would say, you could argue are evil, because they are...
Well, he's not breaking the same law that he is fighting against. So he's fighting against taxation, but he's stealing.
Right.
And breaking like personal property.
From people that are taking advantage of the laws that are evil.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not breaking the laws that he's opposed to, necessarily. He's breaking other laws to alleviate the problems of the problem laws.
I would say he probably doesn't view what he's doing as stealing. He probably views what he's doing as redistribution of wealth.
Liberating funds.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Because if these people are just hoarding it and they're not really using it for what they should be using it for, Jeff Bezos, I'm just saying, when's the modern cyber Robin Hood gonna come along?
It's not us.
FBI, if you're listening, I do not have the technical skills.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, and for Captain Blood also, I mean, he's looking after his crew, you know, and I don't think I would argue that his actions are inherently selfish because he's a doctor. Like, that's his thing. Even when he's a pirate, at his core, he tries to, like, fix people, you know.
Right.
Like, that's who he is.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
I think, so there's those characters who I think are always driven by trying to help other people. I don't know if I would identify them as great characters. But then you've got, like, Mal from Firefly, who definitely pursues his own selfish interests on occasion.
What about Locke Lamora from the Lives of Locke Lamora?
Oh, he's definitely gray.
As gray as they come.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's one of the... So normally the main character is not my favorite character. But in Lives of Locke Lamora, he's about... Like, that's one where, wow, the main character is actually maybe my favorite character in this. Because of just... Go listen to our read-along for Lives of Locke Lamora if you haven't. And definitely read the book if you haven't, because it's super good.
So good.
But no, he definitely... Like, his whole thing is... He's just a thief by nature. And that's his thing. And he doesn't particularly care how it affects who he's stealing from, necessarily. And yeah, he definitely looks after his own self-interest, but he does have his moments of heroic sacrifice and, you know...
Right, like he wasn't going to let everyone die.
He still cares about his crew.
Right.
He definitely doesn't care about how bad he messes up his marks, guys. You know.
Right.
He's less... He's
leave
less...
you destitute? Fine.
Who? What?
He's as far as, like, the Salvaras. Am I going to leave you destitute with, like, no money?
Yes. Yeah. And
it's
I'm cool
fine.
with it. Yeah.
Am I going to let this other super bad guy kill you? No.
He's less noble because he doesn't steal from the rich to give to the poor. He steals from the rich just to steal from the rich.
Because it's fun.
And then he hoards the wealth.
Right. Yeah. He's not a Robin Hood at all.
No. I mean, it's still very entertaining, and you still root for the guy, but he's not as noble as Robin Hood.
No.
So, yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
What do you think about my observation? Would you agree about their motives behind their actions? Like, if they're looking out for other people, maybe it's not necessarily gray. But...
I think that we're getting more into philosophy than maybe I was prepared to get into.
Here we go. We're in it now. Let's do this.
But I think that when I'm thinking of, like, the quintessential Spock moment where it's like the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one. And, like, if you're gauging, like, moral ambiguity off of whether or not are you defining, like, the moral line as, is it good for society as a whole, or is it better for the individual as a whole? And, like, you're using that as a scale, I think it makes it a lot more difficult to judge some of those characters that are kind of dancing on the line, like Robin Hood and Captain Blood. Because certainly Robin Hood is thinking of the needs of the many.
Yeah.
Over his own well-being every time.
The collective good.
Captain Blood, like, I will argue that Captain Blood definitely has selfish motives. Because
he feels like he's got burned, you know.
He did get burned. He totally has it out against that king, and I can't remember which king it is. But it's not until
James?
after that king is dead that he's like, oh, we don't have to do this anymore. Like, he's solely gone into the pirate life for the sake of messing up this king's trading routes. So, and that's not helping. Like, that was a revenge plot for him. Like, he wanted to get back at the king for ruining his life.
And not be a slave anymore.
And so...
Yeah, so you could maybe argue, I would definitely say Captain Blood is more gray than Robin Hood.
Yeah. Yeah, but Robin Hood, yes, I think that the fact that he's looking out for the collective good of everyday people makes him less morally gray and more just morally good. There's a lot of other characters in that story. You could talk about King Richard being morally gray because he abandoned his kingdom to go on crusades and let his
tyrannical brother
take over and
ruin everything. Yeah. Should have probably just stayed home and not gone on crusades.
Just worried about the people where he was.
Yeah.
Not that
that's a whole other rant.
We don't need to get into discussion about the crusades.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's interesting if you're looking at like how you define moral goodness.
Yeah, for me it's all about from? Yeah, for me it's all about motive. Mm-hmm. Like, what was your motive? Was it selfish? Mm-hmm. Was it like, in this situation are you allowed to be selfish? Like, like if your selfishness is it's like impacting other people in a negative way, or is it just, even if it's just impacting you in a negative way? I mean, I don't know. You look like you're thinking about something.
Well,
the wheels are turning. What's up?
Well, so on my list I had a couple anime characters.
Okay.
That I think like lend well to this particular part of the discussion. We'll have to do some explanation of these characters a little bit. But specifically, Bakugo in My Hero Academia is a student who wants to be a hero.
Yeah.
But
acts like a villain all the time.
All the time. He's very angry and he's very selfishly motivated because his big motivation is that he wants to be the number one hero.
Yeah.
And it's the same with Endeavor, who is a pro hero. Who also just wants to be number one.
Endeavor was very morally gray, I would say.
Yes.
I mean, look at what he did to his kids.
Yes. No, Endeavor is like for sure morally gray.
But trying to redeem himself now anyway.
But Bakugo is like, I just want to win. And by winning, I'm going to save people. And All Might, who's another character, is like, I guess that's an okay way to go about it, as long as you're saving people in the end.
Yeah.
Which is like... weird.
Yeah.
A weird way to rationalize a kid throwing tantrums, but okay. I still really have come to enjoy Bakugo. But
he's also developing.
Initially, like, rubs a very, like, wrong spot on me. Like, when you first are introduced to him, I'm like, ooh,
he's basically a bully. He's a classroom bully.
This kid.
And super big-headed.
Yeah. But he grows on you.
And he has come a long way.
He really has.
He actually works with his classmates now and doesn't just call them side characters. Like
yeah, he calls them extras for like the first half of the show. But yeah, so if you're looking at his motivation of like just gaining status, that makes him a gray character.
Yeah. And it's because it seems like for him, he wants to be like his hero that he idolized.
Right.
And he has become like the embodiment of victory. Like, he has to win because his hero, the person he looks up to, always wins.
Right.
But the person he looks up to always wins, like, fighting villains and helping people. So it's like, that's an interesting...
He got really lucky that his idol is a good person.
It's really interesting... Bakugo is more of an interesting conversation than Endeavor. Endeavor's pretty clear-cut. That's a morally gray character. Mm-hmm. Bakugo's interesting, though.
Especially when you consider him as a foil to Midoriya, who's, like, the true main character of the show, who also wants to be the number one hero, but his motive is saving people.
With a smile.
And, like, not wanting people to ever have to worry about him ever again.
Yeah.
So he's more... focused on like how he's making other people's lives better, But his end goal is also to be the number one hero.
Yeah.
Which is like all the kids' goals, really.
I think that's less about selfish motivation and more about idolizing the number one hero and wanting to be like them and make them proud. It's like people who idolize like other musicians and then they go into music and want to be like them. It's like they might not, it might not even be like I want to be like, well, there's some of it probably where it's like I want to be like them for the fame and the glory and people to idolize me. That's the selfish part of it. But if it's like I want to be like them because I want to be as good as they were at what they did and be helpful in that way, that's the selfless side of it. So I think Bakugo, like you said, definitely dances on that line now.
Yes.
And I'm not sure which side of it he's on.
I don't know if he knows either.
Yeah.
But he's also just a kid. So
yeah, he's like 16 in the anime, so he's got time to figure out his life.
Yeah. And then the other anime character I had was Inosuke from Demon Slayer.
Inosuke. Oh gosh, I don't know.
He's such a weird character. I don't know why. I don't even know if he knows what.
Literally raised by wild animals.
Yeah. And just likes killing things.
Yeah, he just likes fighting. That's like his thing. I don't know if he's necessarily morally gray though. I don't know. I mean, he's definitely very self-centered. And he calls his friends his underlings. But it's like but it's played off as like
it's so funny because
it's played off as like comic relief. So I have a hard time calling him morally gray when it's obviously just comic relief. But I don't know.
For the listener who may not know who or know what Demon Slayer is or who we've talked about Demon Slayer before, but
it's one of my favorite anime. It's in my top 3.
It's so good for sure. But Inosuke is a side character, fellow hero.
Yeah.
To the main character, Tanjiro, but he doesn't wear a shirt, always wears a boar's head because he's too pretty. And he's embarrassed by how pretty he is. And he just is screaming all the time. All he does is scream.
And he was raised by...
and get into fights.
He was raised by wild animals.
Yes. And he just thinks everything is a competition and a challenge.
It's like if Mowgli from Demon Slayer kept being raised by wolves, or Mowgli from Jungle Book kept being raised by wolves and became a Demon Slayer.
Yeah. It's just... It's very endearing, though, after you get over the initial shock of him. Because the first episode he's in, you're like, what is happening right now with this person? But after that wears off, you're like, oh, this kid just needs a mom.
Once he's on your side, he's fine.
Right.
Trying to deal with him as your enemy, though, is an issue.
And it really was.
I have no idea how to classify him.
Okay.
No clue. I don't know if I know enough about his character to be able to classify him, because not a ton yet in where I am with the manga has been revealed about his backstory, other than...
Well, and I've only ever seen the show, so...
Yeah. But you've read some of the manga, too, after the show.
I read that one volume.
Oh, okay.
I read 8.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm not sure about him.
Okay.
To be honest.
Fair.
There's all kinds of morally great characters in Attack on Titan.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
All of them?
Pretty much. Yeah. And, oh, man, some
Levi
of you haven't even met yet.
Beats the heck out of Aaron.
I'm so pumped for you to meet more characters. Levi's very morally gray. Erwin's very morally gray. They're all morally gray.
Not Armin. Not yet. He might become morally gray, but he's not morally gray yet.
I actually had to think about that one. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see, Anna. We will see.
Not Sasha. She just wants food.
Sasha is a cinnamon roll. She is pure and too good for this world.
Yes.
Anyway. So yeah. Morally great characters.
Yeah.
What do you think? Have we rambled about this long enough?
We covered a lot of ground. I think we did good.
Like you said, we got philosophical.
We did.
So tell us what you think. What defines a morally gray character? Who's your favorite morally gray character?
You didn't ever pick one. Well, you talked about Captain Blood, but you didn't actually pick one.
I didn't actually pick one because I didn't prepare for that. And I'm just going to say Mal from Firefly.
Okay.
And
I think that's a good answer.
Because I like Nathan Fillion.
I think that's a good answer.
And I like Firefly. Could I think of a better answer if I thought about it more? Probably. But that's what we're going to stick with.
I think you could probably argue that most of the Avengers are morally gray in some form or fashion. At some point in their journey.
Ant-Man. Ant-Man is my favorite morally gray.
Hey. Ant-Man is an excellent choice.
Yeah.
That's lovely. Do you remember when you thought that you weren't going to like Ant-Man and you were like not going to watch it?
Yeah, I don't know. I just felt like it was unnecessary. And then I watched it and I was like,
oh no, this is good.
This is one of the best Marvel movies ever.
It's so good.
Yeah. Anyway, let us know what you think about morally gray characters. Who's your favorite? What do you think makes someone morally gray? Do you think there's too many of them? Do you think everyone should be black and white? Let us know.
Yeah.
Look forward to the interaction.
That'd be awesome.
So yeah. But I'm going to go home and pack now.
Totally fair. Totally fair.
Because I'm moving in like 3 days.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, until next time.
All right. Yeah.
Go read something cool.
We'll catch you next time.
Later.
Bye.